The first night of the occupation came without warning. Sirens blared through the city, cutting through the darkness as the air shook with the distant roar of explosions. By morning, a thick cloud of smoke blanketed the skyline, casting the buildings in a shadowy haze. Fires had broken out across the district, turning parts of the city into smoldering ruins. I stared out at the destruction from our station window, watching the flames lick at the corners of buildings that had stood for centuries. I used to think there was nothing left to lose. My home, my family, everything I once knew had been reduced to rubble in an instant. But as I looked out at the historic heart of the city, the towering cathedral, the narrow stone streets lined with generations of memories, the monuments that told our history, I realized that there was more to protect, more to fight for, than I'd ever let myself believe. That's when the orders came. We'd been recruited by the city's Preservation Council, tasked with something different from our usual firefighting duties. The objective: save the monuments, the old museums, the libraries, anything of cultural significance. If the fires reached those structures, we were to make them our priority. I could see it in the faces of my team, a blend of pride and tension, knowing we'd been chosen for something important, but something that would come with impossible choices. I gathered the team in the station, their faces dim in the flickering emergency lights. Jake, my second in command, a reliable rock of a man, stood beside me, his gaze steady, even as I saw a flicker of concern in his eyes. Next to him was Layla, our medic, her expression pensive as she tightened her gloves, a woman who always seemed prepared for the worst. Marcus, our youngest, barely 23, stood at the back, shifting on his feet, his jaw clenched, his usual jokes replaced by a haunted silence. "Listen up," I said, pulling everyone's focus to me. "Our orders are clear. The Preservation Council wants us protecting key historical sites, but let's not fool ourselves. We'll be stretched thin, and there will be choices we'll have to make. Not all of them will be easy." Jake nodded, his gaze meeting mine, a quiet affirmation that he understood. The others stayed silent, but I could see the determination in their faces, the unspoken understanding that this mission would test us in ways we hadn't imagined. The radio crackled, and I picked it up, listening as the dispatcher relayed reports of fires creeping closer to the old district. All available units to the Grand Library and the Museum of Antiquities, came the urgent order. Structure fires reported in both locations. Priority is containment. The Grand Library. My heart clenched at the thought. I'd spent countless hours there, losing myself in its endless shelves, each book a fragile link to the past. And the Museum of Antiquities. I could almost see the collections within its walls, artifacts spanning centuries, fragile pieces of a history we could barely afford to lose. But a part of me hesitated, knowing that the fires weren't confined to empty streets or old buildings. Somewhere out there, people were trapped, hiding, waiting for help. I looked at my team, reading the same conflict in their faces. Our job was to save lives. It had always been about people. And yet now we were being asked to protect the past, a duty that felt both noble and, in a way, merciless. "Let's move," I said finally, my voice carrying a weight I didn't entirely feel. "Jake, Layla, you're with me. Marcus, take the second truck. We'll head to the Grand Library first, then move to the museum if we can contain it fast enough." The ride to the library was tense. The streets empty save for the glow of flames and the dark shapes of soldiers patrolling the outskirts. The city was like a ghost, its familiar landmarks shrouded in smoke, its sounds muffled by the thick haze. We were silent as we drove, each of us lost in our thoughts, in the memories of everything we'd once known and loved about this place. The library was worse than I'd expected. Flames curled around the upper floors, casting eerie shadows across the stained glass windows that lined the front. The roof was already beginning to buckle, bits of flaming debris tumbling down, littering the steps. I could feel the heat even from a distance, and it made my skin prickle with a familiar dread. "Stay sharp," I shouted as we jumped out, my voice barely audible over the roar of the fire. "We go in fast, keep to the main floor. Priority is containment. Don't risk the upper levels if the structure's too unstable." Jake and Marcus worked quickly, laying out hoses, the water spraying into the flames in powerful arcs, hissing as it hit the heat. Layla and I moved inside, breathing through our masks, each step calculated, careful. The fire had already begun to spread through the stacks, the smell of burning paper thick in the air, filling me with a visceral sense of loss. We pushed forward, dousing what we could, forcing back the flames. But as we reached the central hall, I caught sight of something that made me stop. A young woman, curled in a corner, clutching a small child. She looked up as we approached, her eyes wide with fear, the child silent, his face pressed against her shoulder. "Layla!" I shouted, signaling her over, and she nodded, moving quickly to check on them. "Are you hurt?" I asked the woman, my voice barely audible over the crackle of the flames. She shook her head, her gaze shifting between me and Layla, her grip tightening on the child. We came here for shelter," she stammered, her voice thick with exhaustion. "Didn't know where else to go." I glanced at Layla, feeling the weight of the decision pressing down on me. Our orders were to contain the fire, to save the library if we could. But this woman and her child, they were right here in front of me, their lives fragile, immediate, real. "Jake!" I called over the radio, my voice cracking with urgency. "We've got civilians inside. Pull back to the front entrance and cover us. We're bringing them out." There was a brief pause, then his steady voice came through. "Understood, Captain. We'll hold the line." Layla and I helped the woman and her son to their feet, guiding them through the smoke-filled corridors, each step feeling like an eternity. The flames roared around us, licking at the walls, casting eerie shadows that danced across the room. But we pressed on, keeping our focus on the exit, on the lives we were leading to safety. As we emerged from the building, Jake and Marcus were there, their faces grim but relieved as they saw us. The woman clutched her child close, her face streaked with soot, her eyes filled with gratitude. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice barely audible. I nodded, feeling the relief of her words wash over me, grounding me. But as I looked back at the library, I felt the conflict return, the weight of our duty pressing down with renewed intensity. The flames were spreading, consuming more of the structure, the roof beginning to collapse in places, each lost beam and wall a piece of history we'd failed to protect. Jake approached, his expression torn as he glanced between the burning building and the civilians we'd saved. "Captain," he said quietly, his voice filled with unspoken questions, doubts that mirrored my own. "What's the call? We can keep fighting it, or we move on to the museum. If there are more people..." I looked at my team, at the woman holding her son, at the library, now shrouded in smoke, the weight of the decision resting heavily on me. The fire was spreading fast, and every second we spent here meant risking more lives, more history. "Pack it up," I said finally, my voice thick with regret. "We move to the museum. This isn't worth another life." Jake nodded, his face etched with the same reluctant understanding, and the rest of the team began packing up, moving swiftly, efficiently, their silence a mark of the shared pain, the loss we all felt. As we pulled away, the library's towering structure faded into the smoke, its flames reflecting in the darkened windows like a ghost of the past we couldn't save. The museum awaited another test, another choice. But as we drove, I felt a fierce determination build inside me, a reminder that we were fighting not just for monuments, but for people, for the lives and memories that make this city what it is. And as long as we were here, as long as we could still fight, we would protect both however we could. The road stretched ahead, shrouded in smoke and fire, each turn leading us deeper into the heart of the city, into the fight that lay ahead. The ride to the museum is a quiet one, the weight of our choice lingering between us. My hands grip the steering wheel tightly, every sense on edge as I push the engine, desperate to reach the museum before the fire claims it too. Beside me, Jake stares straight ahead, his jaw clenched, his usually calm demeanor tense. In the back, Layla tends to Marcus, who coughs, his face pale and streaked with soot. His wide eyes dart between us, still processing what we've left behind. The Museum of Antiquities looms into view, its familiar marble columns draped in shadows cast by the fires burning in nearby buildings. I feel a flicker of relief. Unlike the library, it's still intact, but I can see flames licking at the lower floors, winding their way up toward the priceless artifacts housed within. The thought of losing the museum is like a punch to the gut. Generations of history rest within those walls, pieces that tell the story of our people, our culture, our identity. The Preservation Council was right. The city would lose part of itself if the museum fell. But this mission is different. This time, it's not just about the past. It's about what remains of our future. As soon as we reach the entrance, I jump out of the truck, issuing orders to the team. Layla, take Marcus and assess the perimeter. We need to know exactly where the flames are spreading and if there's anyone inside. Jake, you're with me. Let's secure the entrance and start containment on the lower floors. We split off, each of us slipping into a practiced rhythm, our steps careful and precise. Jake and I move inside, the dim, smoke-filled halls casting an eerie glow over the artifacts lining the walls. Statues, paintings, ancient pottery. All of it is blanketed in a fine layer of dust that dances in the air, glinting in the thin light that filters through cracks in the walls. The fire roars down the west corridor, and we work quickly, laying out hoses, forcing back the flames with every surge of water. Jake moves ahead, his back strong and steady, and for a moment, I'm grateful for his quiet resilience, the way he always seems to push forward, no matter the odds. As I help brace the hose, I hear a faint noise, a muffled shout from deeper within the museum. I glance at Jake, and he nods, signaling for me to check it out while he holds the line. I make my way down a narrow hallway, the smoke thickening as I follow the sound, my heart pounding as I wonder what, or who, I'll find. The sound leads me to a small gallery off the main hall, where I spot two figures huddled together. A middle-aged man in a security guard's uniform and a young woman in a long white coat, clutching a large, dust-covered box. They look up, startled as I approach, relief flooding their faces. Thank God. The woman breathes, her voice hoarse. We thought we were trapped. I help them to their feet, my gaze shifting to the box in the woman's arms. Are you both all right? Is there anyone else in here with you? The guard shakes his head, coughing as he tries to clear his throat. Just us, he says, his voice thick with exhaustion. We were securing the artifacts when the fire broke out. She wouldn't leave without saving some of them. The woman nods, her eyes fierce despite the soot covering her face. This box, It's priceless. Original manuscripts, pieces that can't be replaced. She clutches it tighter, as if the contents alone could justify the risk they've taken. A pang of recognition hits me. I know the drive to save something meaningful, to cling to fragments of a past that feels like it's slipping away. But I also know the cost of risking lives for things, no matter how precious, that can be replaced, even if the history they hold cannot. I glance at the burning corridor, calculating our chances. All right, let's get you both out, I say, ushering them toward the entrance, my grip on the woman's arm steadying her as she stumbles. I know it's a matter of seconds before this fire engulfs the entire room, and as I guide them out, I can feel the weight of the box she clings to, the weight of the past that's just barely holding on. As we reach the main entrance, I catch sight of Marcus and Layla returning, their faces filled with relief as they spot us. Layla signals to Jake, who joins us, his face grim as he takes in the smoke still pouring from the museum's west wing. "The fire's spreading too fast," he says, his voice low. "We're holding it back for now, but without more support, this place won't last the hour." The woman beside me clutches the box even tighter, her eyes widening with realization. "No," she whispers, horror dawning on her face. "There are more artifacts inside, pieces we couldn't move in time. We have to try to save them. Please, you don't understand what we're losing." Her desperation hits me hard, and I feel the familiar pull between duty and preservation, between life and legacy. I glance at my team, at their soot-streaked faces, the exhaustion lining their eyes, the weight of the choices we've made visible in every strained muscle, every controlled breath. Jake steps forward, his voice calm but unyielding. "We've already saved lives tonight," he says quietly, meeting the woman's gaze with a steady resolve. "We can't lose more. Your safety, our safety, is worth more than what's left in there." She looks away, her expression filled with anguish, but she nods, clutching the box to her chest as if it's the last piece of a world that's slipping away. The guard wraps an arm around her shoulders, guiding her toward the exit, his voice a murmur of comfort as they disappear into the shadows beyond the museum's doors. Layla and Marcus exchange a glance, their faces resigned but resolute, and we gather our gear, preparing to move on. But as I turn toward the exit, a final glimpse of the museum fills me with a sense of loss so deep it feels like a wound. A realization that we are leaving behind not just artifacts, but pieces of ourselves, fragments of our shared history, stories that may never be told again. Outside, the night air is thick with smoke, the sound of distant explosions rumbling through the city like a storm. We regroup beside the fire engine, our breaths visible in the cold, each of us wrestling with the weight of what we've left behind. As we load up, preparing to return to the station, I glance at my team, at the people who have stood beside me through every moment of this night. Jake, Layla, Marcus. All of them have sacrificed, endured, risked their lives to protect others. And in this moment, I feel the full weight of my responsibility to them, a fierce determination to keep us all united, no matter the cost. Tonight was hard. I say, my voice steady, though every word feels like a stone. We made choices that we'll carry with us. But we're still here, and there's more to save, more people who need us. Jake nods, his gaze steady. "We'll do what we have to." Layla gives a faint smile, the lines of worry softening as she places a hand on Marcus's shoulder, her voice filled with quiet strength. "We're not finished yet." Marcus manages a small, tired grin, his voice barely more than a whisper. "Then let's keep going." We pull away from the museum, the flames casting a shadow over the night as we head back toward the heart of the city. The Preservation Council may have tasked us with saving the past, but I realize now that our duty is to the present, to the lives still at risk, to the people who need us to carry on, no matter the cost. As we drive through the burning streets, our path illuminated by the fires that blaze on every corner, I feel a renewed resolve, a fierce determination to see this through. We will save what we can, protect what remains, and we will do it together. No matter the choices, no matter the cost, we will stand as one. The city grows quieter as dawn approaches, the fires we couldn't reach burning out, leaving only columns of smoke rising into the pale morning sky. We return to the station, exhausted but too wound up to sleep, each of us weighed down by the night's losses. There's barely time to catch our breath before the radio crackles, calling us out again, this time to the old district, where reports are coming in of scattered fires around the main square. I exchange a weary glance with Jake, and he nods, understanding. "Looks like we don't get a break," he mutters, a faint smile tugging at his lips. It's his way of lightening the mood, but even he can't hide the strain lining his face. We know these streets well. It's where the heart of our city still beats, where the oldest statues and stone plazas hold stories as old as the people themselves. On our way out, we meet the Preservation Council's representative, a thin man with a tense face who's waiting for us by the station door. He steps forward, his gaze jumping from me to the team, eyes narrowed with urgency. "The cathedral," he says, voice laced with desperation. "We can't afford to lose it. It's been standing for centuries, a testament to everything this city has survived. You must prioritize it." His words hang in the air, the weight of his plea unmistakable. I nod, understanding his fear. The cathedral is more than just a building. It's a symbol, an anchor for this city through generations of hardship and change. But his insistence feels hollow when compared to the lives we've already fought to save. Every historical site we've protected so far has come with its own cost, and this mission is no different. "We'll do what we can," I say, though my tone is cautious, "but our first priority is keeping people safe." He opens his mouth as if to argue, but stops himself, nodding curtly. His shoulders slump as he steps back, watching us climb into the truck, his expression haunted. As we pull away, the last glimpse of his face stays with me, a reminder of the impossible task we've been given. We navigate through the winding streets, each turn bringing us closer to the heart of the old district. When the cathedral spire comes into view, a swell of relief fills me. It's still standing, its tall, proud structure reaching for the sky, but the fires have spread to its perimeter, a wall of flames licking at the ancient stones, threatening to reduce it to rubble. We leap out of the truck and set to work immediately. Jake and Marcus drag hoses toward the main entrance, the water arching through the air, hissing as it strikes the flames. Layla and I circle around, searching for any other way inside, my gaze flicking up to the massive stained glass windows that line the upper levels, each one depicting a scene from our history, a memory captured in vivid, delicate colors. They are fragile, a part of the city's soul in glass and light. We spot movement near the side entrance, an older woman, frail and limping, trying to make her way toward the front doors. Her clothes are singed, her face streaked with soot, but she's clutching something close to her chest, eyes fixed on the cathedral as if in a trance. I signal to Layla, and we run toward her, catching her just as she stumbles. "Are you all right?" Layla asks, her voice gentle but urgent. The woman looks at us, her eyes glassy with shock, but she nods, holding up the object in her arms. It's an old, leather-bound book, the binding cracked with age. The city's records," she whispers. "From the library basement." I couldn't save them all, but I had to bring this one. Her voice breaks, her eyes welling with tears. It has the names of everyone who built this place. Their names deserve to live on, even if we don't. I swallow, feeling the raw emotion in her voice cut through me. I know what she means, the names in that book, the hands that carved these stones, the people who gave their lives to build something enduring. It's everything we're trying to protect, the essence of a past that refuses to die. Come with us, I say, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. We'll make sure you're safe, and the records too. She hesitates, her gaze lingering on the cathedral as if she's afraid to look away. But finally, she nods, letting us guide her to safety. Layla stays with her, tending to her injuries, while I rejoin Jake and Marcus, who are battling the flames creeping up the stone walls. Every time we think we've gained ground, a gust of wind drives the fire higher, and I feel the helplessness settle in my chest. We're barely making a dent, Jake shouts over the roar of the flames, his face twisted with frustration. The water pressure's too low. We need backup if we're going to save this place. I grit my teeth, glancing up at the windows, watching as the flames begin to lick at the lower frames. The images etched in glass seem to glow in the firelight, fragile against the onslaught. I feel the Preservation Council's words echo in my mind. The cathedral is a symbol. If it falls, so does a piece of our identity. And then, as if in answer to my thoughts, the roof groans, the sound reverberating through the stone like a warning. I look to Jake, reading the same realization in his eyes. If we stay any longer, we risk being buried in the collapse. My duty to protect my team claws at me, but so does the responsibility to protect the city's legacy. We have a choice, but it's one that feels impossible to make. In that moment, a voice crackles over the radio. All units, prepare for additional evacuation orders. Enemy forces are advancing closer to the city center. The call jolts me back to reality. The enemy is pushing forward, and soon this entire area could be overrun. I meet Jake's gaze, my decision hardening. We can't stay here, not with the cathedral on the verge of collapse and enemy troops moving in. I motion to the team, my voice rough but steady. Pull back, I say, the words cutting through the roar of the fire. We've done what we can. We're not losing anyone here. For a moment, I see the conflict in Jake's face, the same drive to save the cathedral that's been pulling at me all night. But he nods, his gaze resolute, and we move as one, retreating toward the trucks, leaving the flames to claim what they will. As we drive away, the cathedral's silhouette fades into the smoke, the glow of the fire casting an ominous light over the spire. The weight of the night's choices presses down on me, a heavy reminder of the sacrifices we're making, the history we're leaving behind. And yet, as I glance at my team, at their worn faces etched with exhaustion and resolve, I feel a fierce, unyielding pride. We are saving what we can, doing what we must. And though we are leaving pieces of our past in the ashes, we are protecting what truly matters: the lives of the people who will carry those stories forward. As dawn breaks over the city, casting a fragile light on the ruins, I know the road ahead will be filled with more impossible choices, more sacrifices. But we'll keep moving forward, together, bound by the duty we share, the promise to protect what remains. Because even in the face of smoke and fire, we refuse to let our history, or our future, be forgotten. The city smolders as the morning sun struggles through the thick haze. The radio has been silent, and we've managed a brief rest back at the station. My team huddles together, sharing what little food and water we have, their movements slow and weary. The weight of the previous night hangs over us, every face marked by a mixture of exhaustion and the unspoken knowledge that we've left parts of our city behind in the flames. We barely have time to catch our breath before the radio crackles to life. The dispatch is frantic, calling all available units to the eastern quarter of the old town. The fire, they say, has reached the opera house. I exchange a glance with Jake, and he shakes his head, a faint, bitter smile tugging at his lips. The opera house? He murmurs, as if the absurdity of it stings. What's left to burn? The opera house is an iconic landmark, but it's not just about bricks and mortar. It's where generations have gathered, where voices rose in song, where lives changed on stage. It's more than just a building. It's a place filled with memories, hopes, and dreams that refuse to be forgotten. I know that my team, despite the fatigue, feels the same pull, the need to save what remains, even if it's only in honor of those memories. Let's move, I say, forcing strength into my voice. We've got one last fight in us. Layla and Marcus climb into the back of the truck, Jake taking his place beside me in the front. We pull out of the station, heading through the narrow streets toward the eastern quarter, weaving between the rubble and twisted metal that litter the roads. With each turn, I see new scars left by the night's fires, shops and homes reduced to hollow shells, their walls scorched black, their windows shattered. It's a brutal reminder of how much has already been lost, of the fragility of everything we're fighting to protect. As we approach the opera house, the flames are already consuming its entrance, the ornate stonework cracking and crumbling under the heat. I take a deep breath, steadying myself as we park the truck, the familiar surge of adrenaline cutting through my exhaustion. We don our gear, working quickly, efficiently, every movement automatic. Jake, Layla, start on the west side. We'll try to contain it from there. Marcus, you're with me. Let's check for anyone who might still be inside. I say, my voice calm, even though every second counts. The heat is suffocating as we push through the doors, the main hall shrouded in smoke, the elegant chandeliers casting eerie shadows against the walls. I can see the old, velvet-lined seats, rows upon rows of them, each one an artifact of its own, stained with the memories of those who once sat there, mesmerized by the performances that graced this stage. We move deeper, fighting through the smoke, my voice hoarse as I call out, listening for any response. I'm about to turn back when I hear it. A faint cough, followed by the softest whisper of a voice. I signal to Marcus, and we press forward, guided by the sound. In the corner of the main stage, huddled behind a stack of props, I find her. A young woman, barely out of her teens, her face streaked with soot, her hands clinging to a violin case. She looks up as we approach, her expression a mixture of fear and relief, clutching the case as if it's the only thing grounding her to reality. Are you hurt? I ask, kneeling beside her, my tone gentle, reassuring. She shakes her head, her eyes wide and unfocused. I couldn't leave it behind, she whispers, clutching the violin case to her chest, her voice trembling. My father gave it to me. He played here. I just wanted to save something. I nod, understanding the pull, the need to hold onto a piece of what matters. You're safe now, I tell her, guiding her to her feet. We're getting you out of here. I signal to Marcus, and together we lead her toward the exit, each step cautious as we navigate the rubble, the smoke thickening around us. I can feel the heat pressing in, suffocating, but I push forward, keeping my focus on the woman beside me, her trembling steps mirroring the weight she's carrying. As we reach the main entrance, Jake and Layla meet us, their faces streaked with ash, their eyes filled with relief as they see us. The woman clutches her violin case tighter, casting one last, tear-filled glance at the opera house as we lead her outside, her face a mask of sorrow. "I thought I could save it all," she whispers, her voice barely audible, a tremor running through her. "It's just a violin. It feels so small compared to everything we've lost." I place a hand on her shoulder, my voice steady, though every word feels like a reminder of the promises I've made and broken. Sometimes all we can save are small pieces, but they're enough to carry forward. She nods, her gaze distant as she clings to the violin case, and I turn back to my team, the fire roaring behind us, consuming what remains of the opera house. I know we can't save the building, not with the flames this fierce, not with the structure already on the brink of collapse. And as I look at my team, their faces etched with the same regret, the same painful acceptance, I know they see it too. "Pull back," I say, my voice thick with the weight of the night's choices. "We've done all we can." We step away from the opera house, watching as the flames consume it, the heat forcing us back, each crack and groan of the collapsing structure a haunting echo. I feel the woman's gaze on us, her expression one of quiet grief, her hands wrapped tightly around the violin case, as if it's the last thread connecting her to her father, to the music, to the memories that once filled these walls. The opera house is gone. The library, the cathedral, and now this, so many pieces of our history turned to ashes, pieces of our identity swallowed by the flames. The weight of it presses down on me, a reminder that we are only human, that we can't hold back the tide forever. We return to the station in silence, the sky beginning to lighten with the first hint of dawn. The fires are dying down, but the damage is done, the city scarred in ways that will never fully heal. I look at my team, at Jake, Layla, Marcus, each of them worn, their eyes filled with a sorrow that has no words, no answers. They say that our work is to protect lives, to save what we can. But as I stand there, surrounded by the remnants of a city that once thrived, I wonder if we've done enough, if we've given all we could. Layla steps forward, her voice soft but unbreakable. "We may not have saved everything," she says, meeting my gaze, her eyes steady. "But we saved people. The stories they carry, the memories, those live on, even when buildings don't." I nod, her words settling over me like a bomb, a quiet reminder that we haven't lost everything. And in the faces of my team, I see the truth of it, the resilience that will carry us forward, that will rebuild, that will keep the spirit of this city alive. The sun rises, casting a soft, golden light over the ruins, illuminating the city in a way that feels almost hopeful, as if reminding us that even in the darkest of times, there is still a way forward. And as I look at my team, the people who stood by me, who fought beside me, who gave everything they had to protect what remains, I know that we will keep going. We will rebuild, piece by piece, memory by memory, until the city stands strong once more. Because no matter what we've lost, we are still here. And that is enough.